going down the wormhole a little bit, should USL start chasing big name recognition for their players? We saw the likes of Didier Drogba grace the field in the USL Championship just a few years ago, but to this point, USL has largely resisted splashing big for big name heat.
Yeah, this is, like you said, we caught wind. Right? This is one of the things that goes out there on the internet. I think it was Jesus Bernal, who has a big channel over on YouTube covering Chivas de Guadalajara, right? And obviously they have a massive fan base, one of the biggest clubs in Mexico, one of the biggest clubs in the Americas, I think is probably right to say. Mm-hmm. And Chicharito Hernandez just left Chivas. It did not go well. His return to Chivas did not go well for Javier. So he is now looking for a place to land. And he's an interesting dude, and I think there's a lot of stuff, kind of baggage that comes with him that maybe is part of his particular destination where he might land up, but land anyway. But I do think that the idea, right? So Jesus Bernal said, hey, Chicharito Hernandez could be enticed to sign with a second division club in the United States. Because the only other, like, if you are Chicharito Hernandez, you can sign with another Mexican club, but you've been so connected to Chivas, and maybe you don't want to risk that in terms of the spotlight that is on you because of who you are. Or you could go back to Major League Soccer. But I don't know if there's any clubs that really want to kick the tires on Chicharito at this point in his career, at the age that he is. So is the idea of going to the second division of America a good one? And I don't know that it's a great idea, him particularly, for a lot of teams. I could see, Vegas. I could see one of the Southern California teams thinking, oh, this might be a good idea. Remember that Cubo Torres did play with Orange County in the USL Championship. Now, Cubo Torres is not Chicharito Hernandez in terms of name recognition.
No.
But he was a Mexican international at one point. So there's something to that. And so I guess more interesting to me than where Chicharito lands is, like you said, should USL Championship teams be looking at maybe some late career, fading in talent, but still significantly famous players as cheap heat? And look, I think this offends a sensibility of certain soccer fans, Rob, because you don't want, if you're a fan of a team, do you want your team to go out and spend a bunch of money because it's going to cost more to get Chicharito Hernandez because of name recognition, just so you can sell some shirts or maybe get a couple thousand more people to show up to games over the course of a season, if that doesn't mean you're necessarily going to win anything? Because now you're using resources on a player who maybe isn't the best option in terms of winning games. And that's always the tension here, particularly for a growing league.
Well, it depends on the player and it depends on the outlay. If the big name player has fallen enough, or at least just wants to play and is willing to take a bargain bin sort of a deal, I think and if they have that kind of ambassador sort of approach to it, it's a lot like the MLS DPs. They can be money down the drain, or it could be something that elevates your team purely based on that person and the actual dollar amount. So say Chicharito, obviously not in his prime, but you can say that even in his later stints recently, he is still able to scrap and get in the box and poach and do those things. And I think in USL, I think that player, if we're going to focus in on Chicharito a bit, I feel like he could still be effective and score goals. And if he's able to bring an ambassadorial spirit to whatever team he goes to, I think that could go a long way.
You can obviously, so in the case of Drogba, he had a piece of Phoenix Rising. I don't know if he still does, by the way. I mean, they have a couple of celebrity owners over at Phoenix Rising. But that was the reason that Didier Drogba played in the USL, because he was a part owner of the team he played for, which is a weird thing.
Yeah, I was going to say low key, that's like in the rearview mirror pretty quickly. Owner player is quite the
well, and I guess that was he was at the very front end of the wave that was coming for USL, which obviously still hasn't delivered massive returns for investors, and it's still fraught business to run a soccer club in America, no matter what level you're doing it, but particularly the USL. But I do wonder, with this boom, and again, The Economist says America is the great soccer market. I wonder if you could entice players who are in their mid to late 30s to maybe come on as part. Hey, we'll give you you maybe it's that equity comes from you playing for us, not for you putting money into the team, but you play for us. You bring your name recognition to the team, and then obviously you get a piece. And then if the team grows, because the thing that is tough here, right? So Riverside Grove, I already threw up this comment, but I'll do it again. Signing big names is fine if that's what your community wants. Don't do it in hopes of building a club or money. Only do it because your supporters are asking for it. Community centric. Okay. First of all, finding like some sort of like we're all on board the same idea of signing a big name player might be difficult depending on your supporter base, depending on who you talk. Like that thing of a consensus around signing a big name, I think that would be very difficult. But the idea that you are doing this as a means to a better ends, like the future is brighter because we signed Chicharito Hernandez and he brought in money or he brought in attention, right? Don't do it to make money, but money matters, right? Let's not pretend like money doesn't matter, particularly for these clubs that might from year to year be running in the red. Like if you're a club that operates in the red year to year and it's all sort of built on a promise of something, well then a guy like Chicharito Hernandez can help grow that promise potentially. Like, so, Major League Soccer has been doing this for a long time. And I think about Thomas Mueller, right? Thomas Mueller was the best combination of a name player that people recognized and a guy who could still contribute on the field and was super engaged in being involved, right? Not just playing at a high level, putting his full effort in rather, but also being willing to talk about why he came and be an ambassador, all those things. And man, the problem for the USL is, of course, that likely you're going to get a player who's much more at the end or much more, if they have options in MLS or they have options somewhere else, are they going to sign for USL? And so you risk sort of tarnishing your club a little bit if you're chasing that dragon of notoriety. So man, this is a tough one.
As we're talking about this, kind of a thought popped into my head, and we could even just consider this a thought experiment. With the World Cup 2026 next year, I'm curious if USL could fill that void that MLS did for a while, getting maybe players from a smaller country where their domestic league isn't necessarily a guaranteed paycheck if they're playing for a higher esteemed team, but there's some insecurity there with payments and stuff like that. So MLS was a great place, a great stable place for a lot of the players. I wonder if USL could kind of pick that up. Maybe when the World Cup 2026 comes around, I wonder if maybe they could pick up some players that maybe from the smaller countries that are standout, and they could might not be a global superstar at the end of their days, but they could get a bigger name like, oh, this guy played in World Cup 26 for like Cape Verde or something like that.
Well, yeah, but that's not heat. You're still having to sell that player. Like having a good player who helps you win. That's what you should be doing most of the time. All right, you're trying to win, so let's get a good player, and then you don't have to sell your fans on their story. They'll help you win. And that idea of finding players who might be enticed to playing at the USL Championship, which is already happening, by the way. It's not like the USL Championship doesn't have a number of internationals. They certainly do, and they have very good players who represent their countries, and those are often smaller countries, right? Because as you said, players from bigger soccer-playing nations will have more options and might end up in different levels. But the idea of, again, sort of like a marquee name who maybe doesn't have a ton left in the tank, but let's say you got, I think it's a little bit of, let's say you got 10 goals out of Chicharito Hernandez, but you have to pay him, a lot of money relative to your payroll,
worth 4 or 5 other players.
Exactly. Like, is that worth it for you as a club? Is that something, because you're signing him on the promise of his notoriety being an impact on your bottom line. And again, I don't want to say like it's about money, but it is the idea that if Chicharito Hernandez comes in and lifts the tide for everybody, then that's a benefit to the club in the longer term. But man, imagine it's a tough question to answer for these teams. And again, you may have to find some other ways, some sort of package to entice a player like that to play for you.
Yeah, and it could be why we haven't seen it so far. USL has resisted that urge for the most part to try to bag a name like that. I mean, other than Drogba, who was an owner.
So we mentioned this earlier that Raul played for the Cosmos. Now, that was, I think, the willingness of the Cosmos to pay significant money to star players because they were the Cosmos and it was part of their brand. And the name was an attractive one for a player like Raul. He was like, the Cosmos, Pele and Beckenbauer. I'll play for the Cosmos. That'd be great. and he spent some time in New York, and it was fine. And Marco Senna, who didn't have the name recognition of Raul, but was a very accomplished player, also played for the Cosmos during that era. So you had Drogba. I guess maybe it's a bigger question of, and I know this is because these are individual clubs and they're making their own individual decisions. It's kind of not the right way to think about it, but you do wonder from a bigger USL perspective if the league would benefit from having some of those names in it, or if it's not a legitimate way to build your business, because then again you're always sort of chasing it. Like you create a precedent where now everybody is sort of chasing this idea of getting a big name to play for you if you are one of the teams that has the resources to pay them.
I'm going to dip into the comments here for a second, but as we go, if you guys have any recommendations or any thoughts of players that might fit into this age category that might have a little bit left in the tank at a lower wage, definitely throw those in there. I'd love to hear some suggestions. I did see Ochoa, the Mexican goalie, thrown out earlier in the show, and I want to shout out brand new channel member Fairman58. Thank you so much for supporting the show, becoming the brand new member of the channel. I play French horn. Paul Mariner played for Albany in ASL 3.0 and already made his money and played because he still loved the game. Someone that came to mind, he's a bit too much of a Brit, but Andy Carroll is the type of guy. I mean, he's just playing for the love.
Where is he now? He was in France for a hot minute. What happened to Andy Carroll?
He's like playing like the National League, or he's way down down the totem pole in England, but definitely just playing for the love.
Andy Carroll, I like Gary. That's an interesting idea. The thing about Andy Carroll is he doesn't sell tickets, Rob. He doesn't. Nobody in America is going out because, I mean, maybe two expats are like, oh, Andy Carroll, and then they go out and see the game. But the thing about Chicharito is he has a popularity. He's Son, right? On some level, like he has that sort of power to get people out who might not otherwise go to the game because Chicharito Hernandez, they want to see Chicharito Hernandez play. Right. So again, I think that the problem is trying to zero in on what level of name recognition are we talking about here? Like even Drogba, an incredibly accomplished player playing in USL. Did he sell tickets by himself? Did more than a handful of people decide that they wanted to go see Phoenix Rising because Didier Drogba played for Phoenix Rising? Or was it only a very small number of soccer nerds who thought, hey, I'll go out and watch Rising play because they've got Didier Drogba? Like Chicharito Hernandez is more of a cultural star than he is a soccer star at this point. And that's what I mean is there even something that USL can accomplish in that vein? Because I wouldn't recommend signing Andy Carroll. I wouldn't recommend signing Jamie Vardy, who was somehow an owner of Rochester Rhinos but never put money in. There's a story.
He's scoring goals for Cremonese.
That's right. He's in Italy. He's in the top division in Italy now, so he doesn't need it yet. But man, that idea of Chicharito is on its own fascinating. But again, it's kind of like, could this happen? Could anybody else actually pull something like this off? And who would even rate at that level to make it worth it for a club to maybe give some of their equity to a player?
I'm sure there's some sort of mathematical equation to like player name prestige to age to remaining ability. There's got to be some sort of mathematical equation.
Isn't that what NWSL is doing with the high impact player rule? Aren't they doing something like that?
Yeah, I gotta say that is scary, honestly. Like this is a tangent, but that's honestly scary. Their evaluation for the high impact player just is leading to a dark place.
So one more thing. So this is from CDG Jobjects. Gobjects. Need pro well first to entice big names? ? Look, I definitely think that there is a certain kind of personality, soccer player, footballer, who might be kind of enticed by the idea of, I'm going to get involved in something happening in American soccer. Look, again, Mueller is a good example. It's a Canadian team. It's in MLS. But he talks about, like, he understood the history of Vancouver, of soccer in Vancouver. He saw something, and he obviously wanted to be part of whatever that was. And he's the kind of personality that goes, I'm not here just to collect a paycheck or look at the pretty scenery or eat the food of Vancouver. I'm here because I want to impact something different than what happens back in Europe. Like it is like an explorer. It's a trailblazing kind of mentality. And I definitely think that USL could find some players who might be interested in being part of that, being trailblazers.
I'm seeing some comments here. I don't know if this is quite on the money, but Messi came in with no pro rel. Yes, but he got a lot of incentives outside of the regular MLS. I mean, he's in ownership. He's getting Adidas deals, television cut. I mean, that there's a whole lot to elevate it. It was beyond just an MLS contract to get Messi.
He's why I drink Michelob Ultra. You know, that's Lionel Messi's. Big down here in Puerto Rico, I'll tell you, lots of Michelob Ultra.
Do you think that the marketing was working, or did a couple years ago did Michelob Ultra, was it popular?
No, I mean, it has nothing to do with Lionel Messi. Michelob Ultra being popular in Puerto Rico has nothing to do with Lionel Messi. I'm not exactly sure why Michelob has found such a big part of the market down here. It's Medalla, which is the local brand, and then Michelob Ultra. Those are the two.
All right, so keep those answers streaming in. We got a couple of suggestions for players to hypothesize it might come to USL or could, or who might even be in that kind of Venn diagram to join the second division of American soccer. Keep those comments coming in after the fact, but thank you for all the live commentary, and thank you to our new member during this segment, Mr. Fairman 58. Thank you so much.